can reclaim them. How your women were brainwashed and how you can reclaim them. Does that title make you feel uncomfortable? Does me saying to you that these are your women being brainwashed, they belong to you, and how you can reclaim them as their rightful owner, does that make you feel uncomfortable? Is there a little red line, a little speedometer going in your head where it goes from acceptable to unacceptable opinion, and that meter's going right up, ding, 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 clicking into the red? What, your women? They belong to you. How do you feel so entitled? This is wrong. Women are their own free agents. They have their own free will. They don't belong to anyone. A woman is an individual. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah? Does that make you feel uncomfortable? Let's break it down. Let's break it down. So in this live, I'm going to go very deep. This is going to be a provocative live. I will strip away layers of conditioning that you have, that you are currently unaware of. I'll strip away decades, close to a century of conditioning, or I'll do what I can in this live. This is going to be extremely informative and extremely useful for those of you who, well, all of us here in modernity, looking around, looking at men and women and going, what the fuck is going on? The men are running scared. The women have all become Karens, or the whole sphere is insane. And the more developed the country, the more they've gone in this insane direction. USA being the most extreme, as the richest country in human history, has the worst dynamics between men and women. Yeah, and the more primitive, primal places which have not developed technologically, they're still more or less on an even keel. So we're going to break this down. We're going to look at it. Now, this was not always the way. And the two things, human development and technology, and a perversion of the rightful dynamic between the sexes, those two things do not go together. They happened at the same time, but they don't go together. No, I don't live with my mom, mate. I don't live with my mom. I live in Medellin, yeah? You can obviously tell I'm not from Medellin, being an English guy. Yeah, I have 2 businesses. I speak 4 languages. I was an academic scholar at the University of Oxford, which is a top university in the world. Yeah, so you've picked the wrong guy, my friend, to call a basement dweller. I'm anything but a basement dweller, but we'll get you out anyway. So we'll get you out my live already. I don't tolerate idiots on the channel, so goodbye. Fuck off. Gone. Right, there we go. Yeah, productive comments are fine in the live. Productive comments, people who are intellectually curious, who want to listen, who want to ask questions, who want to give different opinions, that's fine. People who make stupid comments, talk about my bald head. Obviously I know I'm bald, but whatever, right? Stupid comments will just be kicked out straight away. In fact, I wonder if I can actually just get rid of, I'll see if I can do this now. Let's have a look. I don't think I can. Settings, chat filter. Yeah, I'm gonna hide all chat messages. I'm gonna hide all chat messages because I'm gonna have to be thinking a lot. I may turn them on later on, but I'm gonna hide them for now so I don't be distracted by idiots. Okay, so we're gonna go back in time. It's natural that people just kind of exist in the world. They don't overthink where they are. There's a society, there's a community. I go to watch the football, I turn on the internet, I do X, Y, Z. And this is all normal to us, right? Oh, men and women are equal, that's all normal to us in the Western world, whatever. Oh, divorce is normal to us, right? There's a lot of things happening. All these people coming across the borders, that's normal to us as well. All of these different things. We're expected to live with all these people together in one big happy family. All these things are normal in modernity. You send an infant child and basically lock them in front of a desk for like, what is it, 14 years or something. That's normal to us in modern society. These are all obviously historical aberrations. Yeah, the fact I'm speaking to people online now, that's a historical aberration. But many of these other things are really historical aberrations. And a lot of this stuff is done to you involuntarily as well. A lot of this stuff, obviously the education system and so on, brainwashing and so on. And it's very hard to separate what is real from what is pure conditioning. And so what we're going to look at now is a history of the essentially dissolution of the more or less agreed upon terms between men and women. There's been a dissolution of those terms over the last 70 years, but actually the origins of that are a little bit older. They go back to around about the 1920s. Yeah. And believe it or not, there is a political reason for this. There is a political reason for it. A lot of the issues that you think are psychological or personal, actually in many cases there is a historical, political reason for this. And it actually starts. I'm going this far back. It starts in the French Revolution. You think, what are you talking about, Joseph? But it starts in the French Revolution. The French Revolution is the first democratic revolution, where we have power given to the mass populace of peasantry. Yeah, you had left versus right. It goes back to the French court. On the right were the nobles who wanted to preserve the royal rule, and on the left were the people, power to the people types. And then you had the king in the middle, right? And the French Revolution reintroduced the notion of democracy into the Western world. People talk about how Athens was a democracy, all these cities were democracy. They were very, very different types of democracy. Really, Athenian democracy was 30 armed men who were landowning generals voted on what they were going to do. That was a democracy. Yeah, so it's not really a democracy in anything like the modern sense at all. It was. I would argue. If I could, I would go back to that. I think that would be a better way to do things. But anyway, that's just my personal view. But modern democracy was ushered in at the fall of the French monarchy in 1789, the French Revolution. After that, it's every man for himself. Basically, you have all these people trying to come to fight to get power, essentially. And that's where the guillotine comes from. You have this, basically the terror, this horrible period of just one execution after the next. All of the bourgeois are executed, all of the aristocrats are executed, and then people just start executing political rivals. So you have this effective, thing, the guillotine coming down, killing people. So the result of that revolution was mass bloodshed. And then the interesting thing was as well, who arose out of that, out of all of this democracy, who arose out of it? But the God Emperor himself, Napoleon, the Holy Roman Emperor, because there was no one really to oppose him. He rose, he was so strong, and he gained so much support. He became the greatest emperor really Europe has seen for the last 200 years. So yeah, just bit off more than he can chew in Crimea, but it was certainly a hell of a run while it lasted. And then obviously France reverts back to a democracy, and eventually all of Europe follows suit. All of Europe follows suit. Yeah. And every offshoot of Europe, places like Australia and so on, it's just a copy of the European model, which started in France. Different countries did it in different ways. Some countries went into a civil war first and then became a democracy much later, like Spain, for example. Some of them, like the UK, had this kind of phasing out of the nobility and royals whilst keeping them economically powerful. They were less politically influential. And somewhere like the USA, for example, most Americans probably don't even know this, but the USA is not a democracy, it's a constitutional republic, which is a different thing to a democracy. Democracy is actually not necessarily in the in the US. It's a constitutional republic. The point of it is individual liberty, individual freedom. It's not mass democracy. But what happens in mass democracy, obviously the first thing that happens is it's like the rule of the bottom 20% or bottom 30%. People talk about the top 1%, the top 2%, but what they don't talk about is the rule of the mass peasantry. Yeah, the influence of the mass peasantry that really doesn't have any instinct to rule, or doesn't have much of an instinct beyond, I want a full belly and that's about it really. Doesn't have necessarily the vision of the creation of a glorious nation state or anything like that. It's always the elites that really are the cultivators of that. You have a completely different way of governing, obviously. And then what comes in, you have the spin doctors that come in. And it doesn't take long for people to realize, hold on, if I need the support of, let's say, 60% of the population, all I've got to do is just spin to them. That's all I've got to do. Yeah. Previously, I need to get the king's approval, and I need to go through the courtiers. There was a hierarchy I had to go through. Now that's not the case. Now I just have to I need to go through the mass population, and the spin doctors come in. And it's also realized as well that, and this is 20th century after World War I, but began particularly after World War II, it's realized that, we don't necessarily trust the mass peasantry to make good decisions. Yeah, we consider ourselves to be the intellectual elite now. We've gone away from honor and kings and so on. We've gone into the kind of intellectual, technocratic elite, and we don't really trust the mass peasantry. So what we're going to need to do is find a way to control them. And one of the psychologists, the professional psychologists that most shaped this whole sphere of advertisement and political influence was Bernays, who was the nephew of Sigmund Freud. And I think Bernays' grandson set up Netflix or something like this, right? Which obviously is an immense propaganda machine in of itself. And so, 20th century, up to about 1950, it's kind of business as usual. There's a democracy and so on, but it's kind of business as usual as far as the two sexes go. That's the focus of this channel, men and women. It's business as usual, men and women. There's different periods in history where men worked more, women worked more. The 50s and 60s in the US, they're a bit of an anomaly where women more stayed at home because there was enough of a surplus that they could actually do that, and men had enough money basically to fund it. But historically, women actually were doing a lot of work. They were not careers, they were not boss bitches, it was grunt work, yeah? That every woman could sew. They basically made all of the clothes in the house. Cleaning clothes was masses of work. It was really hard work. Weeding fields, men would be doing the pushing the plow and so on, but weeding the fields was actually mostly done by women, like hard back-breaking work. Go to Africa, now go to Asia, look out into the fields and look who's doing most of the grunt work. It's not men, it's women. Yeah, men might be doing the fishing or maybe the drilling of the building of the roads, the slightly more physical, dangerous stuff. But the low-level grunt work was done by women. Yeah, so women for a lot of history were burdened by having to do a lot of work, basically. It's the 50s and 60s that's given us this idea that women should be somehow like in the home, just nurturing the children all the time. The reality is you can do both. You can do both. But it was largely business as usual between the two sexes. And it's really in the 50s, it's a little bit before that as well with the wars, but the propaganda machine that started off very heavily in World War II, but with Bernays as well. Let me just double check his dates. I think he was one of the guys in the 50s. Let me just check that because I want to give you the correct, he's such an important person. I just want to give you the correct dates. Yeah, the whole 20th century. He died very old. So he was active. He'd certainly been active he was active from the 20s and he was active right into the 60s, so 20s to 60s. So he actually covers this entire period. he almost writes that there's a book by, the famous book by, what's he called again? Chomsky, The Manufacturing of Consent. Bernays came up with a similar book, but it was a textbook. It was something like The Manufacturing of Public Opinion, something like that, right? And so he was a psychoanalyst, a psychologist who sold his services to ad agencies and also governments as well, with the pitch that in a mass-scale democracy where you can't govern just by decree, a king says something, it's done. There's no discussion. The king said it. Okay, well, the king fucking said it. What am I going to do? The king is beneath God, and the whole thing is just based on a hierarchy. Right? There's no discussion, right? When Henry VIII came into England and said, okay, you know this Pope over there in Vatican City that you all revere, yeah, and you know you're Catholic and you know all of this stuff. We're not doing that anymore. We're not doing it anymore. We're going to be this new format of Christianity. It's called Protestantism. It's a bit different. And I am going to be the head of the church. And if you don't like it, I can see there's a couple of you cardinals here who seem to be a little bit opposed to it. So first off, I'm going to cut your heads off. Yeah. So we'll cut your heads off first. Any further questions? Yeah. Any further questions, you can speak to my secretary. He will give you the information. This is Henry VIII's approach, right, to converting England from Catholicism to Protestantism and making himself the head of the church. And by the way, he took all of the church land for himself as well. It's basically the most gangster move any monarch, it's probably the most gangster move of any monarch in like the last 500 years. You changed your national religion and made yourself the head of the religion. And you annexed all the land of the church. Absolutely insane. So he can govern by decree. Yeah, you can change an entire country's religion by decree if you're the king. Yeah, you obviously can't do that in democracy, but you're still going to have an elite that wants to control and push whatever it wants to push. And public opinion is a factor in this. So what you need to do, you need to massage that public opinion. And what Bernays basically said was, this is the summary of his principle was, the public doesn't know what the fuck it wants. They don't know. They're just kind of empty beings, just waking up, eating, fucking, going to work, trying to survive. We are going to tell them what they want. We are going to tell them what they think. Yeah? And we're going to repeat it so often. And beyond that, we are also going to construct the incentives and disincentives for their behavior. And we're going to also construct the paradigm of acceptable beliefs and acceptable opinions. We're going to construct the entire fucking playpen, and they're not going to know they're in a playpen, right? And this is an immensely ambitious project, but this is what we have to do to govern these people. We can't leave it up to chance. We can't do that. Yeah, we can't leave it up to organic, Darwinian forces within society, the marketplace we can't do that. We have to govern it. Yeah, and this is really where it was very lucrative for him, but he's very effective. He's very effective, incredibly effective. And just to give you the first example of how society has changed since Bernays and his work started off with the US, but it filtered across the whole world, was that in the 1950s, they were trying to increase the sales of cigarettes. And only men smoked. It was frowned upon for women to smoke. It was seen as unladylike. It was seen as frowned upon and non-feminine. And Bernays basically famously created a multi-vector campaign to get women to smoke. They were called, he took out a one-page ad, I think it was the back of the New York Times, calling cigarettes Liberty Sticks. And it was a glamorous picture of a woman smoking. Yeah, she had like slightly shorter skirt on than would be normal. It was seen as something that was aspirational and sexy and modern, for women in the 1950s to smoke. They also did a paid stunt where they got an attractive woman to walk down, it was like Times Square or something, or Manhattan, to walk down the street, whatever one of the famous streets was, smoking a cigarette, and they filmed her. But it was a completely staged stunt. It's actually, if you ever watch the series Mad Men, they reference it in that. And in the series, the main character, Don Draper, he doesn't like it. He doesn't like that stunt. But it was one of the things that they did. But there was a broader campaign which was effective, which was getting women to smoke. And by the 1990s, more women smoked than men. Yeah, so it's an incredible social change from women wanting to be feminine to wanting to be free, yeah, and modern, etc. This was the first one. This was the first one. Imagine how many billions of dollars went to tobacco companies because of that. Imagine how many women died of cancer, who had health problems, lost children because of that as well. Yeah, and so it's a very powerful. That is a very powerful campaign, and this. That's small fish. That's small fry compared to the other changes in society that have been brought about, and how these changes basically being supported by an infrastructure of propaganda. Yeah, and if you're at all sensitive to it, you probably feel it. If you're in Britain, for example, you'll feel there are things you can't say. Yeah, you'll think there are things that you just. There's certain stuff even I won't say. There's certain stuff that I think, and I'm pretty sure is true, that even me on these lives I won't say. Partly because I'm like, I have friends and things. I just don't want to alienate every single person just because I think something is true. But you know what the boundary of acceptable thought is. Yeah, you know what the boundary of acceptable thought is. And so that got pushed further and further and further. And the idea, this idea that the suffragettes fought for the right to vote, it's not true at all. It's completely historically bullshit. They didn't. A lot of women at the time, they didn't want to vote. Actually, the idea that women working is such a great achievement, it's not a great achievement. Women have always worked. It's not very interesting. The idea that women can be free as a species is bullshit. They can't. You know, look around us all, right? The flat I'm in. Any women involved in building these buildings, the internet that I'm using, any women involved in that, the phone that I'm on, any women involved in that, yeah, the toilet that I just took a piss in, any women involved in the invention or the installation or the maintenance of that, the fridge over there, the fridge freezer, the air conditioning, yeah, the lights out there, the electrical, the AC, any women involved in any level with any of that? No, it's all men all the way up. Obviously, there's an irony in which that none of us appreciate how artificial and like enhanced our surroundings are, and that includes men as well. But women also, in addition to that, have a delusion that they are actually independent creatures. They're not. They're completely dependent on men for everything. You know, this delusion, it breaks down as soon as they get a flat tire. They walk up a dark street on their own at night. It's just complete delusion. Men believe it as well. Men honestly believe that women and men are equal, like in terms of their physical and emotional capacities. Now, that's not to say that there aren't smart women. Do not misunderstand what I'm saying here. Overall, at the genius level, at the outposts of human potential, people like Nikola Tesla, people like Newton, yeah, Tesla, without which we don't have electricity, kind of important, the internet, etc. Newton, do we have anything without Newton, to be honest with you? Projectiles, planes, it pretty much all comes from him. Yeah. People on that outside edge of humanity, they're all men for a start, and they're overwhelmingly European men, overwhelmingly, with a few Jews thrown in, a few Muslims as well here and there, but it's overwhelmingly European men, for whatever reason. Yeah, and basically no women involved in that. There's a few other people who've come in from other places as well, but it's overwhelmingly men. And in any civilization, whether it's Asia, whether it's Africa, whether it's Latin America, the outside edge And there's been people pushing outside edges in other places as well, but the outside edge is always men. It's always men. Yeah. And so whilst but that doesn't mean that there aren't any smart women. So don't be a retard about this, right? Especially in business, there are some good women in business, definitely. I find women are very structured. They're very good at admin type shit. In any business that just demands lots and lots of grunt work, they tend to be very good at. Yeah. Limit in a kind of annoying, limited way, but they do tend to be good at that. They tend to be effective. Yeah, if the marketplace is already set up and it's already there. Historically, when men were off, doing wars or whatever it was they're doing, working, it would be women administrating the households. Yeah, and they do that pretty well. They do that pretty well as a second in command, and then sometimes with their own businesses as well. Yeah, so I am about reality on this channel. I'm not like like a red pill guy who's like all women are retards. No, dude, they're not, to be honest. There are genuinely smart women who do some impressive stuff. They're not as impressive as the peak men. That's also true. But there are some impressive women. It doesn't really make that much difference in terms of the dynamics. So it doesn't really make too much difference in terms of the actual dynamics and things like sexuality and so on. That pretty much is going to be the same more or less regardless of like how smart the woman is. So yeah, anyway, so you have all of these changes in society, and you have this idea of what is an acceptable opinion, what is not. It's interesting at the moment because in the last 10 years we've seen the acceptable opinion go from you can't say that a chick with a dick, a tranny, you're just a bloke, dude. You're just a fucking man. Yeah, that was the point at which the brainwashing, which was being pushed, and the propaganda was being pushed, it got so absurd, because as well as the soft wiring, there is hard wiring. There is a point at which a human being, they just can't accept any more of the bullshit. So it got so absurd that everyone was like, this is complete fucking bullshit. We've gone from that in the last 10 years to now, there's actually a lot of people online saying women actually shouldn't be able to vote for reasons X, Y, Z, which I think is overall is a correct point. But they're saying that, right? Which would have been unthinkable like 10 years ago. Yeah, we're seeing like a reconnection to nationalism and peopledom in Western Europe, which is obviously provoked by some of it's like an utterly insulting level that things have got to in Western Europe. So this is a provocation. But you can see the governments, they want to crack down on that. That Netflix series where there's the white kid who stabbed someone because he watched Andrew Tate was hilarious. It's like the least violent demographic in England, middle-class white teenage boys, which the worst you're going to do probably at that age is like throw an egg at somebody or something. That's about as bad as it gets. He's stabbed someone, yeah. It's not the inner city gang kids. No, yeah. It's not the Albanian kids who's like fucking dad's in prison in Albania. It's not him. It's the English middle. It was fucking hilarious, right? But obviously Netflix is something. It's amazing how fast that got funded, right? If you've got funds, you can find some bullshit director who's gonna do it for you, right? So there's just an interesting friction now in Europe because there's a counter elite which is largely organic that is now spreading. That is challenging the historic hegemonic elite from the last 70 years because they've led the civilization off in a direction which is questionable. So that's an interesting thing. So we'll see, and it's interesting to live through this time because we're going to see a rejigging of relationships between men and women, but fuck knows what it's going to look like. Fuck knows what it's going to look like. Yeah. So that's the history of this perversion, and a lot of advertisers, it's well known in marketing that women are easier to market to because they're more emotional, they're more impulsive buyers. They spend a lot more on consumer products, they have a lot more consumer debt. This is all statistically well known, and so it makes the biggest dating coach, for example, is an English guy. What's he called? He used to be in the men's space decades ago. What's his name again? I can see his very softly spoken guy, very effeminate guy actually. And he's huge in the women's space. He gets millions of views, this guy. And he talks complete shit. He tries to give women like the lightest guidance towards what men are actually interested in. He tries as hard as he can, but he can't really go full throttle, and obviously his clients are women. But he obviously shifted over. Maybe I'll do it one day. I'll come in, I'll start coaching women. Yeah, you'll see a different Toad on this fucking channel. But he shifted over to coaching women, and his message obviously changed. But he makes a lot more money. It's a lot easier for him to get views. Well, he gets millions of views. So hey, the guy's almost certainly a millionaire. So selling products to women, they're just easier to manipulate in general. And if you look at who has been targeted by the brainwashing, particularly in the US, it's mostly women. So as I said, there are smart women out there, obviously, definitely. I think the best of those smart women, though, I do think they are raised in quite male environments. To bring that intelligence to fruition and utility, there are historical examples of this as well, but they'll normally be raised in quite male environments. But at a mass level, as the influence of men has receded in, let's just take the USA for example, the influence of men has receded on a number of levels, but legally being the first. So you no longer really own your family, you don't own your wife, you don't own your kids, you don't own your property, you don't actually own anything. And I use the word ownership literally. In most cultures through most of history, you owned your family as a man and your property. And why was this? The reason is the burden and sacrifice on men is so immense. The burden of performance, the burden of sacrifice is so immense. So as a recompense for that, and it may not even be an adequate recompense, but at least you would literally own your property, your wife, your family. Yeah. And in Roman times, it was literally even to the point of death. Like, not that you could just randomly kill your own family, but you did actually have rights over the life and death of your own family. It sounds a strange thing to say, but especially if you're an aristocrat, because otherwise they couldn't incentivize the men to marry, essentially. And even then, they have to have quite strict rules upon what men, basically you can't just fuck off and leave. There's lots of rules on men and women, yeah, in order to keep that arrangement together, because it's a lot of sacrifice for both parties. Yeah, and the aristocratic men in Rome, for example, they could just have their girlfriends, they had plenty of money, they could go and wage war. Like, why bother with a fucking family and a wife and stuff? Why bother, you know? You don't need to. You can have a bastard child here and there, keep your family's wealth, and just enjoy your life. Who wants the hassle of being a citizen and all of the fucking responsibility and how heavy that is? Yeah, you see the lives of married men today. Fuck me, heavy lives, man, heavy lives. But in the modern world, they don't have the corresponding ownership and rights, and so it's a very unappealing situation, I would say. But what that's led us to is a new paradigm in which basically men now are playing a new game of kind of psychological jiu-jitsu. In a way, we're the most knowledgeable in this, because men in the past, you were just given legal rights over your family, and if a woman like committed adultery, you could leave her, pay her no alimony, and she's out on the street. So it was not really in her, the incentive for her to commit adultery was very low. Yeah. So you didn't really have anything to worry about. That's different now, obviously. The incentive now, if anything, maybe in the US, for example, is, we all know this, right? This is old news, but the incentive is actually for the woman to divorce you. Unfortunately, in the US, especially if you're a high earner. I mean, how a civilization is realistically going to weather that, I've got no idea. It's the biggest self-own that any dominant civilization has ever done. It's the biggest self-own ever. And it's an experiment. And a lot of it comes from the Soviet times as well. The Marxist idea that men and women are equal is a kind of like shit test from women. Is we want to be your equal, we want your rights and so on. They obviously don't actually want the actual equality, which is, okay guys in the Russia and Ukraine, okay Ukrainian guys, your body, your choice. No, I don't fucking think so. You either get in that van and go to the front and die as cannon fodder, or we'll kill you right here in the street. That's actually what's happening in Ukraine. You can see it. You can see videos of essentially public executions where guys have been killed in the street. They don't shoot them, but they basically maul them. And there's been cases where those guys are just killed in the street. Like literally their neck is broken, you know, their skull is crushed by these press gangs, yeah? And so, yeah, that's the real face of what civilizational conflict actually means for men in society. That's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah. There's no luxury. Yeah. Obviously, women don't want that. They don't want to do any of the dirty work. That's fine. We don't really need them to. So the answer should always have been no. No, you're not equal. You're not. Sorry. Yeah. Christianity came along and gave a model for giving women probably realistically above what they naturally in nature would ever be able to attain. Christianity gave them that model. Yeah? And it gave a model for kind and decent treatment of women, even essentially like, even if they do commit adultery. We don't stone them to death. Yeah, this is the first person who said that is JC. Yeah, take this off, I'll throw this on the floor, pick up the rocks, why not? Yeah, those are the rules, right? And it makes sense on a purely biological level. Yeah, if I'm investing my time and energy and resources and my life force into a woman, and she has sex with someone else, she gets pregnant, has a child with someone else, she's literally stolen my genetics and stolen my life force, because that was supposed to be my genetics that's going into the next generation, and it's supposed to be my funds going to fund my own genetics, right? And that's just how it is. Right? And anyone, like, if you don't believe this is basic Dawkins, the selfish gene. You know, like Dawkins is not perfect on everything, but like it's normal for men to want a lineage. It's one of the biggest motivators that we've got, right? And so, yeah, Christianity offered a different solution, which was probably, I mean, Schopenhauer said it gave women ridiculous graces. So you can be critical of it, but it offered a kind treatment of women and slight level of leeway. Yeah. And it's universal as well. Christianity is universal. But if you take it any further than that, we just get into mayhem, really. Simone de Beauvoir, like, again, if you want to go into the weeds here, the origin of the intellectual origin of the women's kind of the very, very woolly construct of women's liberation, so-called liberation. The founding text would be Simone de Beauvoir's The Second Sex, the Deuxième Sexe, which I've read in the original French twice. So it's a long book. And it's an interesting read. I have to say that as a man, it's an interesting read. But what strikes me at the end is, in the end, for all of her chat and all of her intellectual energy, she's still a submissive. She's a sub for Jean-Paul Sartre in her personal life, and she's a sub for Karl Marx. She says it in the final chapter. It's the most disappointed I've ever been reading any book, was reading the final chapter of de Beauvoir. So I thought, okay, you've opened my mind here, de Beauvoir. Like, I can see some of the struggles of women here. I'm understanding a few things. What is your solution going forward? And the solution is Karl Marx. That's a solution. The Russians tried it, and it's yeah. I mean, one of my friends married into a very, very well-to-do Ukrainian family. He's a very close friend of mine, and he married into essentially a Ukrainian elite family that worked with the regime, worked under the Soviet regime as well, were very high up under the Soviet regime. And It just said, we basically said they pushed equality first, and they basically said, yeah, we just pushed it because we thought it was the right thing to do. But in reality, we don't have any fucking clue. And these were hardcore Marxists. And I think eventually they realized that this is not coherent. Orwell talks about this as well, is in the most passionate enforcers of the regime revolution are women. They're just more passionate. And it's in their nature to police social norms. So if you warp the social norms into chicks with dicks are women. Sorry, chicks with dicks are real women. If you warp it enough, a lot of women will leap to their defense. Yeah. You see with the whole BLM thing in the US, a lot of it was like, white women. When this guy, this junkie, obviously got killed by a policeman, but it's like, this is not, this whole movement, obviously it turned out to be completely bogus. They were complete frauds. Yeah, that would be an example of mass hysteria that was whipped up by media. And then I looked into this at the time. There was a study done at the time, it's been repeated twice. It's the Harvard study on violent police brutality across the entirety of the US. And it was done twice, and the head of the study is black. They had to make him black because otherwise it would be seen as biased. And so they got a black academic to do it. And they found in both studies, the first time they did it, they found clearly that police brutality in the US is worse on whites. Whites get it worse than anyone. There are more killings per crime per capita on whites. I think it may have been blacks which had the least, right? It would make sense as well because probably the police officers don't want to be seen as racist. So they're probably going to tolerate more from those criminals in the ghettos, the black criminals in the ghetto. They're going to tolerate more, right? Because they don't want to be seen as the racist guy. Yeah, where they don't have that problem when they go over to the white trash, guy living out in the forest somewhere who's completely crazy, comes at them with an axe or something. I saw a scene like that on the police camera action, and they just shot him twice in the chest. Yeah, he didn't get any benefit of the doubt at all. And the study was so, the guy who received the results of the study, the academic's like, let's try this again just to double check. Let's do all the studies all over again. And it all came back the same. So that was a clear example of mass hysteria being pushed by some completely batshit crazy agenda. And then people profiting off that and all sorts going on. I mean, millions change hands. I feel sorry for those. The people who get whipped up in it, part of me resents them. But with the Black Lives Matter one, I felt like it was really appealing to people's sense of fairness. And then even the footage that was released of that guy as well, what they don't show is him completely going batshit crazy in the police car before that. And he's going like crazy. The car's rocking as well. And also, I think the guy's about 6'3", 6'4", and he's huge. So in order to subdue a guy that big, you've got to use quite extreme force. So they probably should have tasered him a few times. So it's just an ugly fucking thing that happened. I felt sorry for the people who got swept up in that. Not the people who were looting and stuff, but a lot of genuine people, felt that we were living in this highly, like where police were just executing blacks and things like that. And people I know people with very little money, even people who were in debt, and they sent money to BLM. It was such a disgusting manipulation. But that would just be one example of this, right? Mass scale brainwashing, right? The real racists actually in the US are the Democrat Party historically. Yeah, they basically destroyed that community. Yeah, very low achieving community in the US, and then they always talk about, the Nigerians who go in, like girls like this, the African girls who go in, they always excel. They always excel in the US because there's good opportunities there. And the locals have got this bizarre sort of culture that's developed because there's been, welfare, no accountability. And this does link to my topic, which is 80% of homes in Black America are single parent, single mother homes, 80%. And it's the community with the highest levels of crime and the lowest levels of academic and economic achievement. Yeah, and it's 80%. It used to be 10%. And they were worried about it when it was 10% in the 1960s. Yeah. What's going to happen? Low socioeconomic group, when there are all these boys running around who've got a single mum. What's going to happen? Yeah. Those guys know what it is, and it's a shame. It's a shame. And then you've got all of the cultural stuff as well, which is not represented. Again, this does relate to what I'm talking about. Brainwashing is I see them on my travels is very, very conservative American black guys, very buttoned down conservative types who are pretty high achieving. You know, like they've done fairly well for themselves in life, and they're out traveling, enjoying themselves. Basically similar types of guys to me and my friends, and if anything more conservative, to be honest, if anything more conservative. And you never see that represented anywhere, do you? In the media. That's never shown with those Americans, yeah, because that's not the image. Yeah, because it's pure brainwashing. And there's a lot of guys like, there's a lot of girls like that as well over there. And they only seem to focus on the down and outs, the poor, you know, the ones committing the crime and so on, and the people with no accountability. Yeah. I bet of these middle class guys that I see knocking around here, knocking around Santo Domingo, the ones who are doing well, I guarantee the majority of them had 2-parent households. Or at the very least, their parents were both responsible, even if they separated. I guarantee that. I absolutely guarantee it. So the separation culture, I will bring it back to the UK. There's a similar culture in the UK amongst the lower classes, primarily the chavs. So the chavs would be the white working class Brits. And they have actually a remarkably similar culture to what you describe as like the ghetto, you know, black Americans, like lower economic, socioeconomic. They have a remarkably similar culture despite being in different countries, different ethnic backgrounds. The culture is remarkably similar, and the commonality is high rates of divorce, high rates of single motherdom, low economic achievement, high rates of single mothers. Yeah, and that's all facilitated by the state. The state accepted divorce, no fault divorce, all of this, then the state, at the lower economic level, the state then becomes a husband. If it can't garnish child support from the husband, which it often can't, then it starts to pay out, yeah? And it's people like us, we're paying the single mums through our taxes. Yeah, so that would be another example there of, just 100 years ago, there would be full riots in the streets for that. Like, what, you're gonna take my money to pay for someone else's bastard child? Fuck you. Yeah, that would be completely, but you've got to do it slowly. First of all, we need to be fair to women. So the acceptable opinion is, well, I want to be a fair person. Okay, fine, so what does that mean then? Well, it means if they're not happy in a relationship, they can leave. Okay, that seems normal, that seems reasonable. Yeah, and then the guy has to continue to pay them for their lives, yeah, and then if he's not there, then we pay the taxpayer. Okay, who's the taxpayer? Oh shit, that's me. So I've got to pay for it. I don't even know her, you know? So, yeah, that would be an example, right? If that would have been laid out initially, whatever the goal was, I think the goal was probably to empower the state. But yeah, liberalism has made some fatal mistakes in the last 70 years. And on the male-female question, it's made some civilizationally fatal mistakes. Another one would be abortion. Again, this is something I was raised to understand. Oh, abortion, yeah, it's no big deal. It's terrible to get pregnant. It's the worst thing in the world is getting pregnant. And then I never analyzed it until one of my religious studies teachers, he brought it up in school and said, what do you think of the word abortion? We just said, do you know what it is? And we were like, yeah, it's actually, I kind of don't really know what it is. What is it? Brings out the TV, puts the video on, shows us the video of an abortion. It's basically a fucking vacuum cleaner into the woman's vag. We're all just there, like, we're like 14-year-old boys, like, what the fuck is this? To my knowledge, actually, nobody in that class accidentally got a woman pregnant. And in other classes, the years above me and below, practically all the guys had unwanted pregnancies, practically all of them. But all the guys, we were looking at each other afterwards like, forget the girls, I don't even know what the girls were thinking. But in fact, that might have been a class where it was just the guys for some reason, I'm not sure. I think for some reason it was just, did they go off on this? I don't know. But yeah, we saw that and it was like, what the fuck? I didn't know that was it, you know? So they use a word, an aborted mission. The language itself is Orwellian. It describe it. If they'd said, oh, well, you can always get a coat hanger, or you can always get your womb vacuumed, which is what it is. It's worse than that. It's horrible. It's a horrible process. And even now, the chemical thing is a horrible process. It's an awful process. This is one of the things where I analyze Christianity so closely because I'm half Nietzsche and half Christian, which is a really weird position to be in. But that's my honest person is half Orthodox Christian, half pagan Nietzschean. Yeah, Greco-Roman, like to the victor go the spoils. That's me in a nutshell, is those two positions right up against each other. So there's times I'll look at the Christian angle and I'll go, they're 100% right. Nietzsche actually would have an argument. Abortion didn't exist in his time, but he actually has a clear argument which will be against it as well. He probably wouldn't be against it in cases where like the child's disabled. He actually wouldn't be against it then. He would, but he would be against it for healthy families for sure. But as I say, it didn't exist in his time. But that would be another example of brainwashing. Yeah, and we brainwash men and women to think this is normal. We brainwash women into thinking, realistically, the only job that they have to do for civilization. The men, we can cover literally every other job. Even stuff that women are better at, like being a fucking midwife, we actually could cover that. Yeah, there's nothing they actually have to do for humanity to continue other than that. We want them to do other stuff because it would make our lives a lot fucking easier. It's good for them as well. But what they have to do is that. So one thing they have to do, it's one thing we can't do. Yeah? And they've been brainwashed that that's the worst thing they can be as a mother. Yeah, having a child. So painful, you're gonna die. Your life is gonna be over. And so, when you think about, it's a combination of immense blunt trauma, brainwashing over and over and over and over again through education, through films, etc. Coupled with the innate, there's an innate aspect of women that is more easily brainwashed. The reason I can say this with absolute certainty is I've brainwashed plenty of women. Yeah, I used to do it when I was in my late 20s. I used to brainwash them into being whores. Yeah, like Marquise de Sade level brainwashing. Because I was like, I want to fuck this girl, but I can't be asked to be her boyfriend. So I'm going to make her into a whore. Yeah, and I don't want a whore already. I want a girl who's not a whore, and I want to make her into a whore. I don't think I ever quite succeeded in making a full-on Marquise de Sade whore. But like, there's girls who probably I was with, who if I wasn't with them, I can think of at least one case where if I wasn't with her, she'd have probably had a couple of boyfriends and that would have been it, and got married. As it was, she's probably had about 10, probably slept with about 10 guys. And part of it was my brainwashing her. Yeah, monogamy is bullshit. It's completely self-serving. Monogamy is bullshit. You need to be a freak, whatever. And it's kind of like, great for me, I can fuck you, I don't need to be your boyfriend. So I was brainwashing these girls, right? The dark arts came in when I started to realize, like, if I'm just honest here with what I know, I'm not going to get laid. Yeah, I'm going to have to start to do some dark arts, man. Manipulation, brainwashing, psychological shit, Any guy who's actually been in the game, like with women, especially in the nighttime, every guy who's running this type of game, anyone who's getting any type of, any type of success. I think maybe now I've unleashed more native sexuality in myself, so I don't need to do that stuff. Back in the day though, I'm an English guy, it was a very puritanical society, so we're doing all of this stuff because you're fighting masses of social conditioning, multiple layers of social conditioning just to get fucking laid. If you're a guy who's just, decently attractive, And this is why the Brits drink so much. The girls are there for it, and now they're more there for it than in the past. But yeah, there was just definitely a lot of brainwashing. So yeah, the reason they've targeted women specifically is women are easier to brainwash. Everyone knows this. Like, and then like, let's look at some other stuff as well. So I mentioned the abortion thing there. People will think, oh, you know, Joseph is this hard right guy, whatever. I'm not. I started off, I would say, more towards the liberal end. That's what I would say. My instinctive response was that men and women were equal. That was my instinctive response when I was a kid. That was what I was taught. I was taught in my own family, which was stupid because I could see that wasn't the case in my own family. In my case, in my family, in some ways, my dad was completely incompetent. My mum was far more competent than him. But then in other crucial ways, she was completely useless, like completely non-self-directed, really. She could only ever be a number two. So that was it was interesting to observe that. But I was kind of raised with two people in a business. So my parents both had a business. They had a business eventually together as well. So I saw that firsthand. It wasn't equal, but it was on the surface equal enough for me to accept that judgment. I remember like friends of mine in school, like the Christian guys and stuff, I disagree with them. I'd say, no, you know, women and men can both do this, that and the other. And yeah, I was brainwashed, man. I was brainwashed by society, 100%. When I was 15, 16, 100%. I also believed in the whole, like, if you just work hard enough, you know, the guys who work hard enough, they're gonna be billionaires and it's all about hard work, because that was drilled into me by my parents. But then, yeah, it's actually a friend of mine, his dad was a vicar, and he was like, yeah, I understand that, dude, but let's say Bill Gates, it's not possible that he works 1 billion times harder than my dad. He was talking about his own dad. He's like, my own dad is a vicar. He does work pretty fucking hard. Like he's pretty on it all the time. He works 7 days a week, and he has a good job. He's an important part of the community, but he doesn't get paid that much. Bill Gates, on the other hand, I was like, yeah, that's actually a good point. Some of these debates I had when I was younger with these people, they've stuck with me over the years. But I was way in the equality camp and liberal camp. I was way in there. And I found over time, I was like, started to interact with women, started to observe women. My ideas are starting to break here, because I'm looking at this girl, her behavior is completely irrational, and I'm judging her as I would judge a man, which is, your behavior is not logical. Let me explain to you what you're doing. Now you're going to correct it, right? Like basically what a man would do. Just blank. And they don't correct and they go on, because they're completely emotionally driven, especially the younger girls. And I remember saying to my sister, like she was a few years younger than me, I'm like observing her and her friends. I was like, I swear your friend's there. She doesn't want to be happy. I was a realization to him. I was like, she doesn't want to be happy. She could be. She's attractive. She could have a normal boyfriend and progress through life. She doesn't want that. She wants drama. Weird. It was weird. It was fucking weird. But I thought they were. I mean, anyone who's got a sister, you'll definitely realize, like, yeah, we're not equal. We're completely fucking different. Completely different. So as I start to go through life, the more I went through, the more that equality nonsense started to break apart. And in some ways, women are very intelligent as well. They're very instinctively intelligent. They have a social intelligence, which they rarely use to their advantage, actually. But the more instinctive a woman is, usually the more formidable she is. If a woman's like high society, but she's in touch with her instincts, that's usually quite a formidable person to deal with. I find it a lot when I travel, especially like in poorer countries. The women who literally, they've left school at like 13, they're hands down more imposing and interesting to deal with than a girl who's just been through the whole liberal brainwashing, libtarded system and has come out essentially with a Bolshevik fantasy. How would I put it? Yeah, it's a Bolshevik fantasy in her head. They end up, you know, just coming out a complete waste of space. In terms of like an intellectual challenge, for me, it's just, I just can't, there's nothing there. It's more like you end up just having to unbrainwash someone, which is something I've done quite a lot. I don't do it anymore because I just can't be bothered. I'd rather just to go to a country where the girls are based. But again, you can't really blame the girls that much. You can blame them for their inherent arrogance and their inherent midwifery, but you can't blame them for being brainwashed by the same system that brainwashed me and brainwashes all of us. Can't blame them for that. So the level that guys are up against is pretty immense. Yeah, is there anything else on this one? We talked about some pretty on-the-nose topics here today. I've been through BLM, I've been through abortion, I've been through Bernays propaganda. I mean, the other one here with Bernays is just to like tell you how deep this one goes, right? Even something like the World Cup, like a sports tournament or the Olympics, even something like that, you can argue it has been hijacked by forces. And what do I mean by that? It's like the dream of every young boy is to lift the World Cup, as opposed to the dream of every young boy is to conquer a country or is to be person X. Like, it's channeling visceral ambition and the focus of the working people into a symbolic tournament which has no material importance in society at all. It's a great feel-good thing. I love football. Like, I fucking love football. But when you look at it as a social function, that's kind of what it's done, right? And so you're even kind of subtly controlling the incentives of society, rather than wanting to be a Greek god, like fighting Zeus on Olympus and having 7 wives, yeah? You want to be a football star and lift a trophy, yeah? And we worship Messi, who's like, you know, he's probably autistic, to be fair. Messi, he's like a footballing genius autist. He's good at a skill which is highly impressive, and it takes a lot of character and a lot of talent, but it is ultimately, it's a fairly trivial, irrelevant thing to be good at. It's just a passion, right? So even that, you can argue that the incentive structure just puts people in a harmless direction. It directs energy away from the structures of society, which could be, especially in democracy, which are more fragile than under like a royal rule where you can rule by diktat. So yeah, even the incentives and like the other incentives, like you want to be a scientist or you want to be XYZ in society. Yeah, so it's very interesting how those incentive structures are set up, and how people, especially it's easier to train a smart dog than a dumb dog. This is what I say to my friends. It's why I actually can't, I don't talk about it much on the channel, but I was an academic scholar at Oxford. So I left school at 16 to pursue professional football. So I was at Hull City, I was at Sheffield Wednesday for a bit, then I was at Hull City. And I got as far as the reserve team at Hull City, which is still to this day, is still, of everything I've done, that's the achievement I'm most proud of, playing for Hull City's reserve team. Because it's extremely competitive. It's way more competitive than anything else. It's way harder than like becoming a doctor or something like that, because it's a completely open market and everyone is trying to compete. It's physical, it's brutal, it's skillful, it's so fucking intense. And socially, I found it very challenging as well, because I grew up middle class and all these kids are from like the absolute hoods. They're utter hoodlum kids. Like basically the chavs kids that I was talking about before. Of my teammates that I grew up with, of the ones that I played with, at least 4 are in prison. At least 4 have been in prison that I know about. And no, actually, when I think maybe 5. and mostly for things like assault. One guy went to prison for fraud. He's a really good player as well. I won't say his name, but he's a good player. He was a player who, when I watched him play, I thought, fuck me, mate, fuck me. If there's a player like that, he's my fucking age. Fuck me, I'm way behind, dude. I'm way behind. And then, yeah, it was interesting, but he didn't make it. He didn't make it. He was too slow. It was weird. It was weird. Then we progressed through the age groups, and I overtook him actually, mostly through athleticism. But his skill level was demented. He's the most skillful guy I've ever fucking seen. There's a few guys like that. Another guy went to prison. Another skillful player went to prison as well. When I was 12, 13, when I first got to Sheffield United, he was the best. He was the best by a country mile. He did stuff at 13 I've never seen. I've never even seen pro players like even Ronaldinho do. This kid was his imagination. I've never seen anything like it. Again, mixed race kid, single mum, the dad's fucked off. He was an all right guy as well, but he ended up going to prison for assault and battery on his girlfriend. Yeah, he got out now, and I think he's doing all right in life. But yeah, so that was my experience, and then I end up going from that into Oxford University, which is like the polar opposite environment. Like, because I was a trainee, so I'm in full time with these guys. Yeah, it's like street life basically, thug life. Yeah, for 3 years, and I'm just studying on my own at home, and it's just kind of like a weird thing. And then I didn't get my contract renewed at Hull, and I started to look around and go, fuck me, this is difficult, man. This is really difficult. Like, if I'm gonna even have a chance at playing third division, I'm gonna have to go and play non-league for like 3 or 4 years. I'm like, am I willing to just gamble my life like that just to play non-league? So the penny drops, it's like, you ain't getting to the Premiership, mate. That's not happening. I think once that penny dropped, I was like, I'm not probably even gonna get Championship. Once that penny dropped, I kind of didn't have the same motivation. So I'm like, realistically, I'm going to go and play in the third division at best. Yeah, at best. Yeah, people don't realize how good third division players are. They're fucking mental, mate. You could go down to the second league in the US, a league people think is a joke, and you could go in and like go to the substitute of one of those players, and you go and have a kick around with him, and you'd be like, fucking hell, he was amazing. That was how I assumed like the top players at the World Cup would be. It's like, yeah, dude, the level is insane. The top players at the World Cup, it's like, you're talking, most of them are just complete freaks in all regards, athletically, technically. It's a different sport. But yes, I'm going from this, like, just dog pound, basically, into this really elite university, which is the most elite in the UK. It's the oldest in the world. It's probably the most elite in the world. And it's another dog pound, dude. It's an intellectual dog pound. Not physical, but it's intellectual. Actually, the reason because you go for an interview there, I went to college and I did really well with my studies, because I was just disciplined. And then when it came to preparing for the interviews, I was like, right, I've got 10 weeks. Let me treat this as I would treat preparing for like a football pre-season or something. I just rigorously put in shit tons of hours. And if I do that, I might give myself a chance. I might just give myself a chance, even though I didn't go to sixth form. And so that's what I did. And I got help, to be fair. I remember paying to go to some courses, some like private tutors and things who helped me prepare. And it was kind of like a mission, right? I wonder if I could actually go to the most elite university in the world. I go to the interview and it was just like, I was just like, fuck, this is just another dog pound. I'm just in here sparring with these guys. It was exactly the same. I had to have the same emotional control. I had to have the same resilience. And instead of it being like a 25-year-old man barking orders at me on the pitch, and me having to almost shout back at him when I'm 16, 17 years old, this is a 45-year-old, 50-year-old academic like grilling me on something. I've got to just continue to hold my own. And that's how I got in. The lecturer said afterwards when I actually went, she was like, yeah, your admission test was a little bit below, not my test scores. They do a separate admission test, which is on all this stuff like grammar. And I'm like, yeah, it was a little bit below what we'd want, but your interview is one of the best I've ever done. I was like, yeah, that's interesting. So I had a bit of catching up to do with all of the technical stuff, which I did catch up on. So yeah, it was just interesting going from one dog pound to the next fucking dog pound, man. Yeah. Even there though, even there, this is the thing. It didn't used to be woke like it is now. It was a really cool climate actually, that university back in the day. You basically could say anything. You could say, I had a friend who would regularly come out with this theory. He was like, I think all women should have it was something like a social obligation to give hand jobs to young men, because it's such a burden being a young man. You'd be doing it for the state. And it was like, and as long as you could justify that theory, no one gave a shit. People just thought it was cool. You know, this guy had a theory and then he'd come up with his evidence and stuff. You could basically come up with whatever theories you wanted. But even there, it was starting to go a little bit woke. It wasn't woke, but there was signs on the horizon, which in retrospect, I know what they were now, but in retrospect, like, yeah, at the time I couldn't recognize them. But yeah, I even realized there, like, there's brainwashing going on here, man. That we're being brainwashed into liberalism here inadvertently. And this was the thing that made me angry as a millennial later on, because then I came out of that into like the business world, ended up starting a business in Monaco at 24. And it was all going swimmingly until I ran into really grievous health problems, 24 and a half, 25. So I've been through all these different worlds so young. Like, I'm living in Monaco at 24. At 18, I was in Hull City Reserves. At 21, I was in Oxford. It's like, what the fuck? And went to work in Madrid as well. All these different things happening. And yeah, then I got into Monaco, which is the most extreme business environment of the most extreme wealth in the world. So I've seen all of this extreme stuff so young. And it's like, fuck. The thing I liked about Monaco though is like, okay, this is reality now. This is, you know, there's none of this bullshit brainwashing. It's just, yeah, you know, money and influence all the way down, money and guns all the way down, basically. So yeah, that's why on this channel I am no bullshit, and like, yeah, there's still more on my CV that I don't even share, to be honest with you, but it's like, that's already a bit of a taster of my CV. So I'm coming in here doing these videos, to share thoughts with guys who are intellectually curious, who are curious about the things that I've looked at, and then maybe about the life experiences as well. But yeah, down there in Monaco, for example, you've got all there's more brainwashing there, but it's all brand brainwashing. You know, it's all brand fucking brainwashing. It's no good for the young men as well, being down there. Terrible for young men, that city. Terrible for young men. A lot of these environments these days are bad for young men in general. Too sanitized. The young men need to be out in the town, need to be out in the fields, in the mountains. That's what they need to be doing. So yeah, all of this corporate brainwashing, and now it's just, with social media, it's just exploded across all of society now. So how do we unfuck ourselves? I'll bring this to an end. Hopefully there's been some interesting things shared there. The stuff probably will be interesting, I think it's worth looking into, is Bernays. Look into Bernays, man. You start looking into that. Yeah, I was going to make the point earlier, but I went off on a digression. But it's one reason why my friends from university, I can't really talk to them anymore, because they all went down a corporate route, and corporate is basically adult babysitting. It's still preserved the millennial class. For my sins, I'm a millennial. I fucking hated that whole liberal bullshit. I saw through it, and it was so bad in my class. And the people I grew up with and went through studies with, they all have that same underpinning of liberal thought. And The most intelligent ones definitely question it, but they kind of can't that much because they work in banks and things like that, and they work in corporate. One of my close friends from uni, he's such a cool guy, he fucking became a vegan, which I was, to say that I was unexpected I was stunned by this guy becoming a vegan. It was interesting because I was more progressive than him when we started uni. And then as he went through the London professional class, and I went into business and I went around the world, I would say I'm about as based as it's gonna get realistically now. Like, short of joining the Taliban, I'm about as based as it's gonna fucking get, right? So we've gone in completely different mental directions. And all of those people are the same, they all think the same thing, And the most brainwashed are the girls. They never question it. Bless them. Part of me is like, do I even speak to some of these people anymore? I don't get anything from speaking to them, really. It feels like I'm speaking to a kid who's like still believes Santa Claus is real. Yeah. So I don't have too much contact with all those people, even though they were smart people. But that brainwashing, it's easier to train a smart dog than a dumb dog, and there's no incentive in the corporate world for them to think for themselves, really. The only ones, there's one who's a complete sociopath who's managed to get his way to the top of like a hedge fund. And I was the only person who gave that guy the time of day. Everyone hated him. But I always thought it was interesting because I was like, no, this guy actually is an operator. I know what an operator is. I'm gonna have a very different life to him, but he's an operator. And because he's so out there on an edge, he's quite moral in a way, but he puts himself he's a coke addict, and he puts himself around a lot of dirt, as well as earning a lot of money. And I always got on with him as well, had interesting conversations with him, but I think the coke, to be honest, no, I couldn't have a conversation with him now. So a lot of those people I've just drifted away from. My friends now are mostly business owners, individuals, artists. I get on really well with artists because they have an individual view, and that would be performers, dancers as well. So that's who most of my friends are these days. And then guys I've met internationally as well. Like, you kind of have like a spiritual brotherhood as well. My friend, good friend of mine from Angola, he's a roofer from Angola. He's got a scar across his fucking eye. You think, what on earth would you have in common with this guy? You were an athlete, you were an academic route, business route. What would you have in common with a roofer from Angola? The commonality is we've had parallel journeys of like, he had ventured out of Angola, he went to this place and he went to that place, then ended up in England. The guy works his fucking ass off. The guy likes cold approach. He doesn't know what it is, but he likes it. And I've traveled around the world, done my different thing, gone off in a different direction than maybe I was supposed to. Yeah, so it's kind of, there's like a spiritual parallel there with those two things. It's a whole interesting history, man. My life story is an interesting fucking history. Here I am right now in Medellin. My early life was basically the football thing I wanted to do, but I think there was a point maybe around 15 I wanted to walk away from it, but I didn't, because it was kind of like, oh, then am I letting go of a dream too soon? I don't know. I could sort of see where my limits were going to be. Like, I pursued it on until about 18 and a half. So I actually managed to eke out quite a bit further up the pyramid. Reserves, it's no joke, man. To get to reserves is pretty good. Like, I give myself more credit for that than having done I did a translation for the president of France, for Sarkozy. And I give myself more credit for the football than I do for the language thing, because it was more competitive. It took more to do that. And then going down the academic, the business route. Interesting fucking life. Yeah, it's quite Nietzschean, actually. My life is quite Nietzschean. I'm a modern day Nietzschean. He was the first true digital nomad. Yeah, he got a pension age 30, and then because of ill health, then he just fucked off around Europe. Amazing writer. So how do we unfuck ourselves? This is something I thought about. I don't like to dish out problems, then it's okay, there's nothing you can do. You can actually do a lot with this. First of all is realizing the layers of brainwashing that you've been exposed to, and also that women have been exposed to. And I think a realization I'm even taking from this as I say these words is realization that we can't actually just hate on the women. You know, when I see, like, for example, an American female, it's such an obnoxious creature, such an awful creature from a specimen point of view. It's one of the most inferior specimens of humanity that's ever been produced. And yet you still can't really hate them because they've been brainwashed from cradle to grave by forces that were way beyond their control, that they don't understand, and they think give them a sense of false empowerment. So yeah, you can't hate them. The men really are the ones who do have to step up and start to exert more authority. Jordan Peterson said women need to control women. They can't do it. It's the men that need to. They need to shame women more instead of being pussy worshippers. Shame them more. Not for sex. Don't shame them over sex. Shame them for when they act in stupid, moronic ways. Shame them for that. Shame them for their attention begging. Yeah. American men are very soft, man. Very, very soft. I see them here with the Colombian girls. It's just, I don't know. So, yeah, this is a lesson, is just to not hate on the girls too much, because ultimately they've been brainwashed. There's nothing you can really do. Now, here's the thing. If they can get brainwashed into something, they can get brainwashed out of it. And once you're giving them some good hard dick, and you're giving them the old, you know, smack on the arse, pull on the hair, that very primal aspect that goes way beyond culture. Once you're giving them that, they do actually, and then if you start to, and you're also giving them some protection and maybe some kind of advice as well, and you're kind of like, you're the kind of rock in a way, and maybe a little bit of drama here and there. Once they're getting that from you, then you can start to do your own brainwashing on them. Yeah, I mean, and that means bringing them back into a line with nature and reality. So, yeah, every girl I've been with, I brainwash in one way or another. And the girls I like the most are the girls I just really don't have to. Those are the girls I like the most, where we already think the same stuff. Everything I've just said here sounds like some red pill male stuff, even though they don't go into this kind of granularity or history of it. But there's girls I've been with in Serbia who are like, they word for word, and there's even stuff I wouldn't say that they'll say openly, yeah, word for word. They'll be harsher than me, yeah. And a lot of Asian girls are like this as well. Dominican girls are pretty much the same as this as well. So I don't need to brainwash those girls. They haven't been brainwashed, so they're more in a natural state themselves. But with Western girls, even like feminists and stuff like that, I end up brainwashing them anyway. If I stay around for long enough, I'll just brainwash them into my view of the world. And at the end of the day, there's all that culture out there, but I'm the one railing them. Yeah, I'm the one. It's my cock that they're choking on. I don't know if it's good. Does that get me banned from YouTube? It's not, you know, Bernays. Yeah, it's not Prada. All of that crap goes out the window. Yeah, because it's, you know, it's primal. Yeah. So, yeah, this is essentially how to unbrainwash Western girls. Feminists are very easy to seduce as well. Like the veneer is very thin. That's the other thing I would say for most of them, especially with with Europeans. Americans, again, I think it's a combination in the US of very poor education system for us, a very poor education which leads to low critical thinking skills, complacency, lack of challenge, lack of imposing men in the culture, and then a culture which constantly advertises to you. And one thing you like learn about advertising, marketing and so on, you want to make the person feel right and feel understood. Yeah, you don't want to correct the person. Yeah, so if I go into a place where someone's correcting me and I'm like, well, I'm not going to buy this shirt now. It's this schmoozy, smooth talking. The customer's always right. And this has been going on. Americans are the best at this in the world, right? Which is why this is what all these girls are getting from day one. All these products, you're this, you're that. It completely brainwashes them. Like, they're soft brains. They don't have the critical faculties to resist it, and there's no incentive to resist it either. All the incentives are to go with it, right? And they don't mature into mature adults. And this is why you have all those tantrums and things, very childish kind of behavior, you know. That is stuff that you genuinely don't see with, you'll see women go off the rails and have fights and things, but there's something uniquely fucked about American women. It is actually unique. It's because it's not just the feminist stuff, it's the advertising that's gone into them. And I think it's a matriarchal society as well. It's a very feminine primary society. I am kind of fascinated by how this country, which is this militant, magnificent beast that's got bases in like 100 different countries, complete global dominance, right? How that country on a kind of street household level can be so fucked. And I think it's because it's so big. 300 million people, all you need is 3 to 5 million very smart, capable people in government and administrating the military, and you can have a monstrous country. And the rest of the country can be completely fucked. As long as they're paying their taxes, it doesn't really matter. And I think that's the situation with the US. Like, their military and government, I mean, obviously there's the waste and stuff in government, but the essential part, and especially the military part, is so overpowered compared to every other country. It doesn't matter that they've got 45% obesity, or that these feminist fucking libtards are being all crazy in Portland. It doesn't matter, because you've still got like the largest military in human history, yeah, and lots of fucking money, yeah. So I think that's how it does it. Back in the day, like back in the days of the city states, of the smaller states, you could not have had a libtarded population. You couldn't. Like in Sparta had no walls, right? Sparta, the military civilization, even the Marines, they still use some of their phrases and some of their, they study some of their battles and Thermopylae, different things, right? Even the US Marines, right, are in awe of the Spartans. The Spartans didn't even have fucking walls in their city, because the men were the walls, as in, it's basically like a boxer who's just like, just his arms down like this, go ahead, try and hit me. And it's like, it's fucking intimidating, because you're going, if I hit him, he's gonna fucking break my jaw. If I even try and hit him, he's obviously so fast, he's gonna break my jaw. That was Sparta, yeah. They were so militant, they didn't even have that many written records. Most of what we know about them was written by like everything is really written by other people, and it's archaeology as well, because they were so militant. Everything was military domination, right? You can't have libtards in that society. You can't have women who are like, oh, you know, I want to be free to I don't know, have an abortion, and I don't know, what do I want to do? I want to work in recruitment. I want to have an abortion and work in advertising. It's like, no. Your job is to raise strong sons. That's your job. And if you don't, yeah, Athens or the Persians, they'll come and kill all of us, rape you, rape all our daughters, and execute all of our sons, if they're lucky. So these are our jobs, yeah? Okay? Those people over there, the 20, 30%, they're the slaves, yeah? You don't talk to them. They're not even allowed to work out, yeah? If they try anything, that's it, we just make an example of them, right? The helots, yeah? Very brutal state, right? But you couldn't have libtards there. Lasted for like hundreds and hundreds of years. I think it's like 500 years. Dominant force. Yeah, Athens was the most exotic. Athens was fucking incredible, dude. Athens was something else. Oh, I have to do a separate live on Athens. Yeah. What a civilization, man. The Athenians took over from Sparta. It's basically like, if you imagine, the Athenians were like, if you imagine, people think it was like, again, they think it was like a rainbow parade, because they did have have this gay thing that went on between like, it was basically like a 17-year-old boy and like a 21-year-old. It was like this weird student thing, right? It was genuinely like weird sexual practice that they had in Athens. So there was this whole gay thing that went on there, but people think it was like this weird. It was like a rainbow parade. It's like, no, dude. It's more like it was pretty much Afghanistan. Yeah, like that's what they do in Afghanistan. They have like all these rent boys and stuff. This gay shit. Taliban have got so much fucking gay shit. So it's ridiculous, dude. I know for a fact from a friend of mine who works in UK intelligence. I know for a fact they fuck goats in Afghanistan. Yeah, that's not even a joke. That sounds like, nah, you've got to be, no. He said, like, never mind boys, never mind 10-year-old boys, which they fuck. This live's gonna definitely get me cancelled, but never mind them. They fuck goats, mate, in Afghanistan. Yeah, how screwed is that? Yeah, so the Greeks were not that perverted, but they were pretty perverted. And they were vying for power over each other all the time. It was a den of fucking snakes in there. They had all these different breeding programs as well. They had 30% of the population were enslaved. It was run by a democracy, which was 30 armed generals. That was a democracy. They did make an agreement with the people, basically saying, look, if we fuck up to an extent that you guys are starving, this is set in stone, literally in contracted in stone. You can come and kill us. This is in stone. Yeah. This is the bond between us as the rulers and you as the peons. Yeah? We are our own democracy up here, but if we fuck it up, it's set in stone. There are more of you than us. You can come and kill us. That never happened, but it was like, that was an agreement, right, between them. And then on top of that, you have incredible war, military technology, incredible architecture, incredible art, ridiculous maths and philosophy coming out. The maths that we study today, Archimedes, Pythagoras, Euclides, like that's like in England GCSE maths is Archimedes, Euclides and Pythagoras. Basically everything you study at GCSE maths when you're 16, 2,500 years later in the UK is essentially from ancient Greece, 2,500 years ago. From guys who were like, you know, the modern day Taliban mentality in many ways. It was a ridiculous fucking civilization, ridiculous. And they had their ups and downs of tyrants and then wars and just constant fucking mayhem. And then eventually Rome usurped them, eventually. Yeah, so anyway, I've gone off on the Greeks again. Yeah, let me just finish on this, just as I don't know how I got onto them. I always end up talking about them. They have funny angles on sexuality. They basically say if anything's wrong with a woman, if she's sick, just fuck it out of her, basically. But yeah, how can we retake what is rightfully ours as men? As in, I want the whole civilization back. I don't just want, oh, guys can get married and things like that and not have a completely heinous life. I want the entire civilization back in our hands. That's what I want. That's my, not that I can affect it that much, but that's what I would advocate for. And on an individual basis, if you're the guy who's shagging the girl and you're giving her the goods, and you don't even have to be some kind of a porn star. You could have a 1-inch dick and you could still do all of this stuff. It's mostly psychological dominance. And then also the fact she's your girl as well. You claim her as your girl. You can then just re-brainwash her. Once women have children as well, they tend to, they go from more fantasist, libtarded to more right-wing or at least centrist. That's the position of most married women with children. You can't still really be woke that much. They'll try, but again, that's just women acting up. It's just a civilizational shit test, basically. Carl Benjamin talks about it. That's the best phrase for it, civilizational shit test. It's just a shit test. No, we're not doing it. Yeah, bye. And so that would be the first way. The second way, which I would encourage anyone in this channel to start thinking about, is to, on a mass scale, start to produce culture in the way that Bernays did. Start to produce culture in the form of media, in the form of fashion, in the form of memes, in the form of any creative expression. Produce the culture that reclaims this territory, and you don't state anything that I've just talked about here, or the end goal, which is essentially meant to reclaim all of Western civilization, it's rightful owners to reclaim it, and that includes the women as well. Because ultimately the women, I don't say property I say that in a technical sense. It's not like you can just throw them in the bin or something, like you can dispose of a pair of trainers. No. But in a technical sense, women are the property of a civilization, because if they're left unclaimed, they will either just die off, descend into chaos, or at some point someone else will come and claim them. At some point, it could be another ethnic group, another genetic group, or it could be another civilization entirely. Yeah, at some point that will happen. It's inevitable, right? So in the truest sense, as people who can't organize and defend themselves, in the truest sense, women are property. Yeah, they do, to be fair to them, they do have a damn good fucking crack on protests and stuff. They actually do. Yeah, obviously they get treated with kid gloves. So, yeah. But to reclaim everything in society, part of that is going to be a cultural battle. I don't think it's going to be a civil war. I don't think that's going to happen. I think about this a lot. I don't think it's going to happen. Because somewhere like the UK, you need guns for a civil war. And you need a lot of guns. And you need organisation. And you need telecommunications. It's very difficult for even a large band to be organised enough to create a threat to central government, really. And the army is always going to obey, and so the police, even if the army agrees with you. So how can you actually affect the kind of changes that we'd want to see? So I'm linking politics here to men and women. Yeah, I just want women to be sane again, make women sane again. Yeah, and how can you actually do that? It's a campaign. It's going to start off with a campaign in culture. Yeah. So we produce our own culture. That goes as far as fashion. It goes as far as art. It goes as far as any way in which you can produce any kind of culture and share that en masse. Some of it, many people will just get nothing through. Nothing will get through. My books have got a few readers so far, not too many. Not that I didn't actually write it as a propaganda piece, to be honest with you. I would say that piece is the ethos expressed in that book is somewhere between primitivist and anarchist. I think I worked the anarchist out of me in that book. I don't think it's not viable. That book itself kind of proves that it's not really viable. But any kind of culture that you can produce, and you speak in symbols, we don't speak in terms of direct teachings, it's not going to work. Yeah, and then also shifting the dialogue as well, shifting the realm of acceptable dialogue as well, the Overton window. So you got to smash that Overton window, and this is one, and there's been a lot of success in that direction, but we need to keep pushing way further. We need to make woke nonsense and we need to make things like a woman having an abortion. We need to make it an awful, which it is awful, but we do need to make it clear how awful that actually is. Yeah. The reason I'm very confident on this one as well, because women know. The women who've had them, they fucking know. They have depression, dude. They have major depression and they never get over it. They may get over the depression, but they will get post-abortion depression for months. You don't just get over having a fucking abortion if you're a woman. Yeah? It's like, some guy fucking shot you, right? You lost your thumb and 3 of your fingers, right? Yeah, you're still alive. But as a guy, you're not going to just get over that, right? You're going to go into a depression, and then you're going to, for the rest of your life, it's going to be a scar. I would say it's that bad. I'd say if you're a guy, and also if you're a guy and you get a girl pregnant, don't go down this fucking route, my friend. Do not go down this route. Have the child. Even if it's fucking suffering, just trust me, have the child. Have it. I'm 40, I've never had an unwanted pregnancy ever since I was 15. I've been having sex since I was 15, never had an unwanted pregnancy. It's not difficult. We need more humans in the world, so bring them in and they will be fine. but you'll never live with yourself. If you've got an honest mind, you're going to have to do a lot of work to justify killing an innocent child. It's disgusting. Yeah. And so that will be another thing as well. If that can become so unacceptable socially that people who they're just shunned. They're just shunned. Yeah, people change their fucking tune when it becomes unacceptable. I remember a guy in a party I was at, this is in Dominican Republic, and he was kind of a strange, kooky guy. He was a writer, and he was very like, he made some weird comment about, we were doing some kind of truth or dare or some kind of a game, and he got too sexual. And then he was trying to get the girls to say something sexual. Now, these are Dominican girls, they're all freaks. But because of the culture there's a slight culture of modesty in public, right? And the girls all didn't like it. And it was interesting because everything shut down. The environment shut down, yeah? The girls, they kind of policed it first, they shut it down. I was kind of watching it, I was like, this guy's quite funny. The girls shut it down though. Yeah, it was because it was beyond what was acceptable to them in public, right? And then the guys were kind of like, interesting. Well, I'm not gonna follow suit on what that guy's just said there. So yeah, that's interesting in the case there. It was the girls policing it, but yeah, creating these environments where you almost basically bully someone into accepting a point of view, which is essentially it's from both the Christian point, let's say abortion, from both the Christian point of view and the Nietzschean point of view, it is a complete abomination. From a Christian point of view, you're a soul, okay? You're a fucking soul. You can't just take away, yeah, the sanctity of a fucking human life, yeah? It is a special life form. You can't just kill it because you can't be arsed, because you'd rather go to fucking Ibiza, yeah? You can't. Sorry. Yeah, that's the Christian viewpoint. It's very strong on that, yeah? It's even with like the gay fucking popes that we've had recently. Oh God, the woke popes we've had recently, who are an absolute joke. Even they've not gone that far. Never mind orthodoxy. Will never happen in orthodoxy or Protestantism, to be honest. They'll never justify it. So it's never justified in Christianity. Also, from a Nietzschean point of view, it's not justified, because Nietzsche's point of view is we are pro the ascendancy of life becoming stronger, more beautiful, going upwards, right? Yeah, we are aspiring upwards, and life itself, a vital life, is the reason for us doing things, yeah? It's an amazing philosophy that he has. So you can't just kill life itself. You can't do it, yeah? It's fucking wrong. It's anti-life, yeah? One of the reasons Nietzsche takes issue with Christianity is he thinks it's too much of a container. It's too, he calls it Procrustean bed, which is so it's a Greek myth where a guy lies in a bed and it's too small for him and he gets all broken up. And that's what he says basically religion is. It's breaking up a natural being and crushing them into something. So he doesn't like it. But they would agree, on certain things they definitely agree. Nietzsche's relationship to Christianity is really interesting. So something like that, we need to be at a point where it becomes cool for young women to say, yeah, I got pregnant, and I've decided to get married. Or I didn't get pregnant, and I got pregnant at the appropriate time at 25 years old. Yeah? But where it becomes unacceptable to anybody to be having an abortion. And on the flip side to that as well, and this is where Christianity comes in, if a girl's pregnant and she's 18, 19, she's a middle class girl, she's going to university, thousands of them get pregnant every single year. Yeah? Me, as someone who is pro-life, you've got to also say, okay, well, we do need to support these women. We actually need to help them. That doesn't mean they get to just be single mum pieces of shit, but we need some kind of structure there where these women can have that child, yeah, and not regret it later on. And then they just become a drone corporate work zombie. Well done. And then have children when you're fucking old, yeah. So Yeah, that would be one example. That would be one example. It's like carrot and stick. I've just talked about the carrot, but there's also the stick as well of social shame. That would actually be effective. There's economic stuff as well, but I can't sort out every single problem. The economics is another issue though. The economics is another issue. The higher status men are compared to women, the better. Part of that, to create that scenario, would be to get rid of all these HR bullshit jobs which are fake, which are just a drain on every single company. They don't create any value. But yeah, we would definitely have to accept there is going to be a 10% of women, and it is only 10%, who are actually highly effective operators in realms of like business, for example. It may be 10%. And they're effective operators. And it's kind of like, well, fine. You go and do your thing. The 90% over here, we need to make sure they're producing the kids. There will be that 10%. Yeah. So yeah. And they're kind of like, the girls like that, if I'm being honest, the ones who are real business ones, they're not just like an Instagram model. The ones who are the real business chicks, they're usually ugly, to be honest. I don't know what it is, but I think it's like they never had the ability to compete on looks, so they had to develop intellectual and commercial skills from a very young age. They're usually notably ugly, to be honest with you. Same with like very good scientists as well. Not in every case, but in a lot of cases. So yeah, culture, boys. Culture will be the next one. And then the last one is we may be in what I could describe as a catacomb culture for the time being. Meaning, are any of us in a position to come and reclaim everything and reshape society and have it, you know, move from this Bolshevik dream into something more sane? Are any of us in the position where, like, you know, I can come on here, I can share ideas, I can live my own life, I can share my ideas with other guys? The idea, by the way, is that all of this stuff gives you a better life. Yeah, when I talk about having a woman as either a secretary or a geisha, it's not to demean women. Yeah, it is because this is the most effective form of relationship that I've ever seen, and I've ever lived through as well myself. And ultimately, that's going to be the form of relationship that's going to have a future, and it's going to produce healthy children and so on. And so, when I say this stuff, it is not to, it's not out of bitterness or anything like that at all. I've had more than my fair share. Like I've actually profited from the liberal downfall. It's what me and my friends say. We're kind of dancing in the flames here. He's dating all these girls from India, from China, all these foreign chicks living in the UK. He's just going through all of them. I've had my time doing that as well. We benefited from all of this, you know, in terms of an indulgence. But looking forward, yeah, in terms of civilization, where does this all lead? And at the moment, is there an angle for a proper reclaim? And I would say it's in the pipeline in the UK. I think it's in the pipeline. I think the battle is on in the UK. We know, if you follow the UK situation, you know who we are up against. It's pretty significant, but I think it's going to be won in fair and democratic means, actually, because the public opinion, due to the internet and then due to the skills, the propaganda skills of the new right, obviously the party is called Restore, but the culture will move back in that direction, or at least a big portion of it will. And we'll end up with, it could end up as a kind of South Africa situation where you have all these tough, you know, based people, and then you have the kind of hordes. So that could happen, but I think it's mostly going to be, yeah, it's going to be a long process. I'd say it's about a 10-year process. And also Europe's going broke as well, so it can't afford to indulge some of the stuff that it's been indulging. So there's a few things there. There's the banksters there in the background who are also very important. They actually probably are on side with some of the causes. Yeah. So in the meantime, what do we do as guys? I'm 40 years old. I can't wait for the UK to recover. I'm an explorer anyway. I always wanted to travel the high seas. And the more I've gone around the world, the more I've realized, holy fuck, I grew up in a fucking propagandist, in a North Korea level propagandist chamber, which is the UK. It's one of the most propagandized countries in the world. And so what do? What do I do? Where do I go from here? And ultimately, as an individual man, you've got to be sovereign. You've got to be sovereign. As much of your own business as possible, or at least a business in which you kind of can work tolerably and it's not completely woke, basically. So that may mean a non-corporate business. It may mean setting up your own stuff. Work with colleagues, work with friends. Not everybody can start their own operation. It's extremely difficult to do. So work with others in every way possible and form gangs. Form gangs. Gangs are what will make your life easier. Gangs, yeah? Fall of the Soviet Union, who took over? Some of the old infrastructure, but a lot of it was just the gangs. Why? Because they were the only ones. The gangs survived communism. Organized crime survived communism. Organized crime survives. I'm not saying you need to be a criminal, but I'm saying learn from the gangs. Even like, it's going to sound insane, but even learn from, this is my life, even learning from the Taliban. Even learning from the Taliban. So a friend of mine messaged me today about it, saying that he told me that the women, he saw a study that women have rickets there because they've been covered up for so long. I was like, yeah, I mean, that doesn't surprise me. It's biologically unsurprising. But the one thing I do admire about those guys is they were a group, a gang with a belief. They stuck together through generations. Many of them died, their sons died, their cousins died. They were absolutely fucking brutal and ruthless. They have an ethic which is incomprehensible to Westerners. But who cares? They fucking stuck around. What happened? The minute those planes left, we're rolling back in. We've got the AKs. We're back. It was one of the most gangster moments of the last 25 years. They just rolled straight back in, took everything. We're fucking back. The boys are back. If you don't think you can learn from that, then you don't have the insight. You don't have to. I don't want to have the same. Obviously, I don't have the same full way of life as those guys. Obviously not. But like the way they stuck together in a fucking gang. Yeah. And so this is what I say to people. This is why my own personal group is called Bratva, which means brotherhood in Serbo-Croat, and it also means mafia in Russian as well. Yeah, that's why I've called it that, because even though we're all above board, we're all legal citizens and so on, in a sense, we are a kind of underground brotherhood. Like guys who are going out doing cold approach, guys who are living all over the world, and thinking about all of these questions in a way that society has not permitted us to think about until recently. Yeah, as honorary Gen Zs. Like a gang is a good way to go. So yeah. To refer this all back down to the main thing in this channel, which is pick up and approach. You see hopefully how much further I'm going with the ambition of this channel is beyond pick up and fucking cold approach. I'm basically wanting to share with you guys why you are in the position that you are in. It's not actually your fault. I've talked about propaganda campaign today, which started in the 1920s, and it's fully documented as well. Like women from 1910, where they wouldn't even wear a bikini, they would be seen as a prostitute. I'm not even talked about makeup today, but makeup in the 19th century, you could legally divorce your wife because she wore makeup when she met you. It was seen as complete fraudulence, and it was only prostitutes that wore makeup. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Like women have got all this freedom, and what have they mostly chosen to do with it? Like mostly, what have they chosen to do with all of that freedom? Make themselves way more desirable to men. Doesn't quite work, does it? Like mentally, we're independent, we're making ourselves more desirable to men because they want to be desired. It's an instinct, it's biological. It goes way further than anything else. That instinct has actually been unleashed more in modernity. It's been kind of given steroids in modernity. So yeah, just forming those brotherhoods. So I'm here in Colombia right now. I will be in Belgrade, Serbia during the month of August. Guys who are interested in meeting me, then we can get on meetings and discuss that type of thing before I'll be back in Europe. I don't think anyone's going to be, I've had a few contacts, but I don't think there's anyone's realistically going to be coming out to Medellin, if I'm being realistic, in the next 3 weeks. So I'm just going to enjoy my time out here. But I will be in Belgrade, Serbia. For guys who are wanting to learn, there'll be more action in Serbia. There'll be more to do there. It's a tough place to learn, but it does separate the men from the boys for sure. Like if you do well out there, you will do well anywhere. You'll do well anywhere. And with me at your side and with some of my guys, Bratva guys alongside you as well, it's a lot more fun. It's a lot more doable. And so yeah, even me as a guy who's a coach, I've done well over 1,000 daytime cold approach. I've done probably tens of thousands of nighttime approaches. I don't even call them approaches really these days, but interactions. Even me, you know, I run out of steam when I'm on my own. I'm out here in Medellin at the moment. I'm just like, I'm not doing a session on my own. I can't be arsed. So I've not done one for about a week, and it's just like, I just can't be bothered, basically. You know, social as well, and having boys around you is definitely the way to go. So yeah, Belgrade would definitely be a place to consider coming out. If you're on the fence about this, I'd just say, you know, this is all talk on this channel. It's giving you guys context. It's building up the intellectual framework. Hopefully it's attracting in some intelligent guys, some thinking guys. The stuff I talk about, Nietzsche, Bernays, Nazareth, all these things. And then you can see me on a video a couple of days ago I released, closing a 23-year-old. Yeah, 40-year-old man, I'm closing a smoking 23-year-old, right? So like, I'm talking the talk and I'm doing deep analysis for you boys, or alongside with you boys, but I'm also going in and doing absolutely world-class approach on camera as well, and I'm putting it up here. So that stuff is not getting too many views at the moment, but it's going to be there. I think those views will build over the months as well, maybe even over the years. Because the one from this week that was a 20-minute approach. I had to cut about 5 minutes out of it, but it was, I look at it and analyze it and go, that's fucking world class. That's world class. I'm still in touch with that girl actually. You know, she's a really cool girl. So yeah, that's the other side to it as well. I'm not just a guy who comes on, you know, like some of these guys, the red pill guys, they talk a lot, they say a lot, they've got their whiteboards out. Okay, I can give you theories as well. I do believe my theories are well thought out and they're evidence-based. But I'm also going into the street and showing you what the fuck is up as well. And when I talk about women from different countries, I'm not talking out of theory. I'm not talking about what I've seen on the internet. I'm talking about, I've lived in 17 different countries, actually being in contact with these different women, dating these different women. I've got with at least 2 American girls as well. You say like, oh, you hate it. I've got with 2 American girls. They were good girls. Yeah. But I've just had a lot of interactions in recent years which were not so good. Yeah, last bit of brainwashing as well. I'll finish on this. As men, we are kind of brainwashed that women are the fairer sex. This has been going on since for a very long time. We're brainwashed that women are the fairer sex, that they're more attractive than us. We're kind of beneath them because we want them. And anytime you want something and they don't really care, then you don't have a negotiating position. And unfortunately, the negotiating position that men had was, well, we control everything. We're strong. We can do everything. You guys can't really do that much in the physical world. So you kind of need us. So we have this negotiating position. I need you to reproduce, right? It's this negotiating position. That's kind of being restructured. And so like men look at women as such aesthetic beauty. And I love beauty in general. I love beauty in everything. I'm an aesthete, right? And the tendency is for us to go, oh, she was a 10, she was a 12. A friend of mine, Sinner, he used to say a girl was a 12. And this guy, he's a model and he's an actor. You've probably seen him on my channel. And it's like, no, my friend, no, that's the standard. That's the standard. That's the standard. That's your standard. That's my standard. She's not 12, she's just a standard. That's the standard, yeah. But we've been brainwashed into overvaluing female beauty. They put on makeup, they excessively create that beauty. And what happens over time is you have to do a lot of approach to get this. You have to see a lot of women without makeup. And even then, the brainwashing comes back in. But you've been brainwashed to think that women are more attractive than you are. And I was looking at some videos when I was editing this video with this girl, and it's like, she's very beautiful, she's got a very nice face. But then I'm kind of looking at it for a long time doing the editing, putting all the translation in. And after a while, I dissociated from the fact it was me and her. And I even dissociated from the fact it was two human beings. And I was just looking at the shapes. And I was like, really, the more statuesque, elegant, graceful, powerful, sleek being from a purely animalistic standpoint, like judging those two creatures as an animal, like as two panthers, the more impressive in that scene is me, without any shadow of a doubt. Yeah, you know, I'm still in good shape now. I just move in a nice way, like lots of guys do. We don't even appreciate this about ourselves, but there's a certain way that we move. Women don't have that movement that we have. You know, more angular bodies, like wider shoulders, thinner waist, and you know, stronger musculature, and so on. And then the confidence to lead the conversation, and so on. I was like, shit. From a neutral point of view, if that's possible, I'm the more beautiful of the two creatures, even though it's me that's gone to her because of my perception of her beauty. But really, it's just my reproductive brain that perceives her big ass, like tight waist, big tits, blonde hair, nice face. She's fit, don't get me wrong. But like, there's a weird brainwashing we have to do there. It's a weird de-brainwashing we have to do to ourselves to actually start to put ourselves on a pedestal of physical prowess, right? Physical prowess. This is actually a reason to work on yourself physically as well. It's so you prowl around like that panther, yeah? I'm 40, like, yeah, I've got a bit of muscle on me, but I'm not that huge, but the body fat, mate, is low. The body fat is low. We can all get a low body fat, yeah? And even if you are carrying a few pounds, just, you know, you can still maximize yourself in the way that you're dressed and your style and so on. So you've got, some guys, let's say they're carrying a few extra pounds, but I'm 5'8", but let's say you're 6 foot and you may be 20 pounds overweight. Yeah, but you're still 6 foot. You've got physical presence about you. So use that as well. Use that as well. For something like daytime cold approach, I do think you're better off with some kind of physical presence, in my opinion. It's going to make your life a little bit easier. So at least get yourself in slim kind of shape. Or if you're a heavier guy, then you know, at least get yourself strong. But yeah, that's a level of brainwashing to return. It's a level of brainwashing that women are more beautiful creatures than men. No, it's like we are both two parts of God's creation or nature's creation. Women are the softer, curvier, doughier part, and we are the more angular, muscular, sleek movement part. You know, you watch women's football compared to men's football. Just look at the aesthetics of that. Like watching women's football, it's like watching disabled kids play football. It's horrible to watch for the most part. And then the men's football, it's like, you know, these sleek guys, some of the fast guys, the strong guys, the skillful guys, Neymar, all these, you know, this is like peak male prowess that we don't see it in a sexual way, but it's an impressive thing, and women will see that in an impressive way, in a kind of sexual way. So we should put ourselves on the pedestal, basically, is what I'm saying. Also the male mind as well, the male capacity for logic, strength, genius. There's an old saying, like from the American cowboys, basically, you've got to be smart or tough. You've got to be one of the two. As a man, I would agree with that. If you're not smart, you need to be tough. And if you're smart, ideally you want to be tough as well. But if you're smart, you know, that's probably enough in of itself. But you want to be tough as well. You want to be both. But yeah, the male mind, you know, like I've just talked for 2 hours with no script on a number of different topics, threading things together with, you know, no difficulty, because stuff I've been thinking about for 25 years, weaving together life experiences with reading, with travel all over the world. And I'm not the only guy. There's thousands and probably hundreds of thousands of guys who are able to do this kind of thing, right? Male orators, you know, male scientists, male engineers, male creatives. We do have this powerful dynamic mind. Yes, some women have creative minds as well. So it's not to say they don't, but I find that attractive in them, and they certainly find it attractive in us. So yeah, use your muscle, boys. Use your muscle of your intellect, of your psychological strength, of your physical strength, of your elegance, and put yourself on that pedestal. Put yourself on that pedestal. Do not put women above you. Because yeah, realistically, just like really, if you can try to dissociate from the fact you're a human being and look at a male and female together and then compare them to like a male and female panther, a male and female lion, a male and female bear, you know, different, you know, in the human species, there's a good argument that the male has greater physical, you know, prowess. I mean, definitely has physical prowess, but like a greater physical aesthetic. You could say that. You could actually say that. You can make the argument. So we want to put ourselves on that pedestal, boys. And obviously, yeah, unfortunately for us, our ridiculous level of testosterone and fucking sperm in our nutsack makes us completely forget about our own prowess and beauty and completely fixate on the female stuff. So as some of the guys on the new right, some of these posters, they're very into physiques and stuff like that, and people saying, oh, these guys are gay and stuff. It's like, no, I think what they're getting into, I think they're recalibrating the psyche of people to celebrate this a little bit more and not put women in this weird sexual pedestal. Yeah. And in the long term as well, it will take a re-glamorization of male, like male panther-like sexual power and male beauty. It will take a re-glamorization of that in order to get women flocking back in. Yeah, you saw what happened. You see what happened with music. Like when rock stars were glamorized, it was the guys who were chain smoking with long, dirty hair and black eyes. Those guys were getting all the fucking play back in like my millennial days, right? And then rap came in. That was very good for black guys. Very good for like low income black guys. I think even a lot of guys who were not low income at all, they kind of pretended they were hood just to try and get in with that whole image. So that was good for them. So whatever comes through in the culture, you know, that women respond to that. Yeah, they're very, very, as I say, brainwashable. So it'd be interesting to see. Yeah, we've had like, I think Troy, like this recent film of Troy, I think this is like the last stand of these retards, you know. I think it sounds like the film. I'm going to go and see it anyway. People say don't see it, but I'm going to go see it anyway. As a guy who's into the Greek stuff, I'm going to go and see it. But I think it's like, again, they've tried. The wokies have tried. I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to convince anybody. So yeah, so re-glamorization of men in general, that could sexually excite women enough actually to start to, you know, come back into the fold a little bit more, be a bit more motivated sexually. I remember like the group I used to hang out with, like we were quite racy guys, and I remember there were girls who come into our group and they were excited to be around us. And I think we were just dynamic, just that male energy. Women like to be around that male energy in person, especially in gangs and groups, especially if they're normal women as well. So yeah, so those are three kind of takeaways there. Form gangs, create culture, and what was the other one? A business as well. Business, and ultimately like a re-glamorization of men, a re-glamorization of the male sexual kind of power. But I think the biggest one there is gangs, actually. That's the biggest takeaway. So it's been a long live, boys, 2-hour discussion there. I get these thoughts in my head, I just think, yeah, let's just go and hit the live. Let's go and hit the live. For the people who enjoy it, great. For the people who find it useful, great. For the people who don't find it, who find it a little bit off the point, that's okay. You can just go and watch my infields. That's also fine. You can watch that, you know, you can just learn off that. But for the guys who are interested to know where this fucking shit came from, Bernays is a huge part of the answer. Bernays, Marx, and then larger social trends as well, people moving towards bigger cities, differences in economic production, so the economics moved outside the household as opposed to mostly being done in the household. And then in addition to that, you also have just mass brainwashing campaigns as well, corporate campaigns. A lot of things have led to this point, and it's fortunately for American guys, it's really hit you boys. It's really hit you boys worse than anyone else. So I recommend all my American guys, like, there's only, you don't need to change yourself, and there's only so much you're going to be able to change realistically. But yeah, listen to my stuff, get yourself on your travels. Listen, there's a channel called Running Man as well. I would listen to him. He's an old school MGTOW channel, but he was also a major seducer. And I would actually like to meet him at some point. I'm hopefully, like, I go and he does his boot camps and stuff, which are completely different to, like, he doesn't teach pickup or anything like that, but he's a guy who's traveled the world, and he's also got an American perspective as well. He's an American guy. I've always got a lot of respect for guys who are in their 50s and 60s who managed to live this piratical lifestyle that I enjoy in the pre-internet days. I really admire that. My friend Rafael, he's in his 60s. He lived in Cuba and Brazil in his 20s, like 30, 40 years ago. Yeah, which is one thing doing it, you know, in the 2020s. There's another thing doing it in the 1990s. It's quite the feat to do it back then. And I just got a lot of genuine respect for that, because people would look at my friend Rafael now and they'd say, like, where he is in life. He's just kind of living in Spain. He comes back and forth from Dominican. He's going to probably retire out in the Dominican in a few years. People look at him and they'd be like, oh, he's not done that much. And then I speak to him about his life, and it's like, given the context of the fact there was no internet, working in Cuba and Brazil in your 20s in the 1990s is a fucking phenomenal achievement. It's an act of high piracy, basically, in the modern world. He's another one. He's a freak, to be honest, when it comes to women. I went in the DR with him last few months ago, and we would do a few approaches and stuff, and I'd watch him do his work. He's a master of his craft, as am I at this point. But I've learned it. He just learned it through life. But yeah, there's one night I went out. I was like, "What have you been up to today?" I saw him, and he's like, he told me, he doesn't call them approaches, but girls he's met. He's like, one of them's an 18-year-old. He's 62. He's getting numbers from 18-year-olds at 62 years old. So that pretty much tells you this guy's, his operational level is incredible. He looks like probably about 48, to be honest, but he's 62. So yeah, the old ways. I do admire some of these older guys. So yeah, check out Running Man as well. He's a very good resource. Running Man. He's got a great channel on YouTube. He doesn't get too many views these days. He's like in the thousands, but fucking great resource, man. Doesn't show his face on the channel. But yeah, I would like to go to Asia at some point, meet up with some of my other mates as well, and Christian and some of these boys out there. That'd be fucking cool at some point. So yeah, boys, we'll leave things there for today. I won't go on any longer. I'm starting to feel the heat a little bit in here. You can hear the music out there. This is, we'll finish on the balcony. You can hear the music out there in the backgrounds. Let's just finish out here on the balcony. So this is Medellin. I'm on the 11th floor here. I might actually get this, I might get this flat for a few more weeks. I've got it reserved until like next Saturday, but I might get it for a few more weeks. I'll go to Belgrade. But yeah, we'll finish overlooking the beautiful Medellin, guys. Hopefully this has been an interesting chat. Feel free to leave comments. I'll be coming through with an offer for guys who are interested in coaching and that type of thing. I'm gonna have some really interesting offers for you guys in the next 4 or 5 months. It's gonna be so fucking cool. Like things on this channel definitely gonna be changing in the next 4 or 5 months. Yeah, so we'll leave things there. Boys, take it easy, and good night and God bless.